All right, so we have an idea, this thing we call ecological niche. And before I can explain what an ecological niche is, we need to talk about something called a habitat. A habitat is where a species is found. It is the environment where you might find something. And you have a picture of this little bear-like creature right there. And if you're playing along, you say it's not a bear, it's a marsupial, right? It's something called a koala. And what would be do you know the habitat of a koala? You might know this. Their breath is very fresh. I've often wondered what they smell like. You're probably saying, what? Have you ever, the throat lozenges, you get a sore throat and you get Hall's eucalyptus. Koalas live in eucalyptus trees. The only thing they eat are eucalyptus leaves. Now, I've often wondered what they smell like. Do they smell like those mint things that you use for your throat? I have no idea. I don't know. But anyway, their habitat is a eucalyptus forest. I mean, they live it's a crazy habitat because trees don't like having animals eating their leaves. And so what do? They produce a kind of a toxin called a tannin. And there are different species of eucalyptus tree. And so a koala bear will be up in one kind of eucalyptus tree and he'll be eating leaves, one leaf after another. And gradually these toxins are building up in this koala. And he eventually realizes, I better go find me a different kind of eucalyptus. I'm getting a stomach ache or toxicity from this. And so he says, oh, that's this other species over there. I'll go eat it for a while. And so they shift from species to try and limit the amount of poison that they're eating. That is their habitat. Their habitat is this eucalyptus forest. Now, so when we talk about an ecological niche, what it is the species in their habitat and the role they play. So what is the role that the koala bear is playing in the eucalyptus forest? They're a herbivore, right? They are a primary consumer. They're eating plants. And that plant, what did it do? It used photosynthesis to produce the leaves, and the little koala bear is eating those leaves. So his ecological niche is a herbivore on eucalyptus trees only. Now, what about white-tailed deer? Well, white-tailed deer, they don't live in eucalyptus forest, but they live in the forest. And so they eat oak leaves, cherry leaves, dogwood leaves, you name it, they eat the leaves from it, right? So it's a little bit different from the koala. I mean, I have them here. I live in Pittsburgh, and we have deer everywhere, and they come and they eat our azaleas, tulips, they get that tall and they get eaten down. They eat so many different plants, it's ridiculous. So the koala bear has a very narrow ecological niche, right? Only eucalyptus leaves. Now, the white-tailed deer, if you got a cornfield, it's over there eating the corn. If you've got a pasture you use to feed your cows, it's eating the grass over there. It's eating you get the idea. It would be what we would call a generalist species. So it can eat all kinds of stuff and do just fine, whereas the koala bear has a very specialized ecological niche. And so it would be what we would call a specialist. There's another term that would also apply to that koala bear, and that would be an endemic species. So, I mean, I don't care how hard you run around Cranberry Township, you will not find a koala bear anywhere, right? They don't occur there, right? You won't find a panda either. So the koala bear is only endemic, that's the word, endemic species that's only endemic to parts of Australia. Now, what about the panda? It's only endemic to bamboo forest in parts of China, right? So these are species that only occur in a narrow location, and in both cases, they're very specialized, specialist species. Now, in terms of climate change, they're very vulnerable, right? So if you start losing those eucalyptus trees or you start losing that bamboo, both of these species could easily go extinct. Okay. Species compete with each other, right? So we have species compete with each other, and they carve out their ecological niche. So I'd said, what is the niche? The niche is the habitat a species lives in plus the role it plays. Now, it ends up, there have been a lot of experiments done over the course of the last 100 years, and we know that no two species can occupy the same niche. So if you talk about, eating those eucalyptus leaves, and there isn't the platypus. It doesn't eat those leaves. It does something different, right? So we had this competitive exclusion principle, which says that no two species can occupy the same niche. But if you look out in your yard and you say, I have I have a cedar tree out there. And if I look up high, up in this near the top of it, sometimes I see a Baltimore Oriole. And then down at the bottom, I'll see these little something else, right? And so what happens is, in many cases, you will have what they call habitat partitioning. And they studied warblers, a kind of bird. They studied a kind of bird called the warblers. And what they found is that the Cape May warbler lived at the top of whatever tree they were studying. And then you got the Blackburnian warbler that lives a little bit lower, and then the black-throated green warbler, and the bay-breasted warbler, and the yellow-rumped warbler. And they occur at different levels in the forest. And so in this case, they aren't competing with each other because they kind of divided everything up and said, okay, I'll use the top, you use this part, and so on, all the way down. And this is what we call resource partitioning. Now, when we talk about resource partitioning in that way, we can say physically on that tree, right? But then, like if we think of, what do they call them? Birds that fly around, swallows that fly around and they catch insects. And if you have ever been around a farm or where you're baling hay, when you're cutting the hay, you're kicking a bunch of bugs up in the air, and the swallows are flying everywhere. Well, do you know what? So they live on those flying bugs, and their niche, their ecological niche, is to be a predator on flying bugs. But what about at night? They're sitting in a tree, right? So at night, somebody else can feed on those bugs, bats. So you can have resource partitioning spatially up and down the tree, or what we call temporally by time. Daytime, the niche is occupied by the swallows. At night, that same niche is occupied by bats. And this is called resource partitioning in a temporal manner over time. Okay, so far we've been talking about natural processes. We can look at this picture right here, and we see a bunch of puppies, yeah? but they're really quite different. You've got a Labrador Retriever over here, and you got what looks like a Yorkshire Terrier here, and that's got to be a Border Collie or an Australian Shepherd, right? They're all the same species. Now, so they're all the same species, but we've selected the little Yorkshire Terrier. You don't want to be 120 pounds, right? So you only breed these little 5-pound dogs, 5-pound girl with a 5-pound boy with that funny little hair going out like it does. And you get, the Yorkshire Terrier. This is artificial selection. Or the Border Collie, you breed for that black and white dog that'll jump 5 feet into the air to catch a Frisbee, or chase your sheep around and bring them back to you. Or you can have the Labrador, which is a great big old dog, very active, that loves to go duck hunting. And so this is artificial selection. Instead of the nature choosing the best genes, we get to do it. Yeah, we're doing it. Okay, so that I think is slide number 6. Okay. I'm going to stop right here and we'll talk about page 5. So that must have been slide 8. Anyway, all right, I'll be right back.